Hello, everybody. Thanks a lot for being here among us for our blue water sailing webinars, which are proposed by Grand Large Yachting Group in association with Yachting World. Last time you were coming from about 40 countries, 40 different countries. So this is a huge event for web-liking people. Today we are pleased to welcome Martin Oudet.
Hi.
We'll wait a few minutes, if you accept so, in order maybe most of the people would connect. So we'll start in a few minutes from now. Thank you. Well, it looks like you were very present among us. Thanks a lot. So I also can see that Loïc Elias, who made a very interesting webinar about boat management, is among us from Tenerife. Thanks, Loïc, for being here. So maybe we'll start from now. So the blue water sailing webinars are proposed by Grand Large Yachting Group. Grand Large Yachting Group is a key player in the European yachting industry. Okay, it was created in 2003 by Stéphane Constance and Xavier Desmarais. This is, of course, a pure French company that owns 7 construction sites in France, that has been building about 2,000 boats since the beginning in 2003. Today, the group in the different companies integrated represents almost 600 direct jobs in France, okay? But these jobs created in France and these boats built in France are mainly sold abroad, with 75 and sometimes, depending on the brands, more than 80% of the production which is sold for export. So today there are 11 companies that are present on 3 main markets, which is leisure market, professional market, and services. But mainly the brands we are interested in terms of blue water sailing are the one you can see, which are Allure Yachting, aluminum boats, Outremer, fiber catamaran, Garcia Yachts, also aluminum boats, gunboat, luxury carbon catamaran, and RM yachts, plywood performance sailing boats. So these 5 brands represent the core business of Grand Large Yachting Group. We have been launching the blue water sailing webinars during the first lockdown. It was, I think, an idea that everyone was agreeing with. And today, for this 3rd session, we have been delivering from now 4 different sessions. The 5th is today with Martin. So we had Mr. Pete Goss, we had Christian Dumas, we had Loïc Elias, I just mentioned. And today we also had Nikki Anderson, today Martin Oudet. On the next session and last of these 6 ones will be with Knut Frostad, whom you maybe know as an Olympic sailor, a Volvo race sailor and skipper, and CEO, and also a CEO of Navico. So today, Martin is among us. Thank you a lot, Martin, for taking the time to prepare all that content and to share it with our attendees.
Okay, thank you,
Martin. I give you the word from now, and I remain here. And if any question occurs, I'm here, of course. Okay.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. So, hi everybody. I'm very glad to be with you today for this webinar. I'm happy to share with you some medicine basics you will need on board in case of cruising, especially ocean crossing, because for sure you will be the only one to be able to manage some medical situation. So you will need some knowledge and some skills. Today we will make a picture of what you will need and what could happen and how to avoid it or to cure it. Okay, so let's go. First of all, a little explanation of my job and my specific abilities. I've finished my studies since 10 years about, and I'm working now in Brittany, in France, at Lorient Regional Hospital. You can see a picture with helicopter because we have to organize some medical evacuation or some care to give to fishermen because there are many vessels who are crossing this place of the Atlantic Ocean. And just before this, I was working in Rennes, the biggest city in Brittany, for the SAMU, the Medical Emergency Department outside of the hospital. And why am I here today is because I worked on some big vessels. For example, the Marion Dufresne on the right side and upside of the picture, which is a big scientist ship, which is going in the south part of Indian Ocean to reach some French scientific station like Kerguelen, which is well known. And after that, I work on the Astrolabe. You see in the bottom of the picture, which is a big ship crossing the ice until Antarctica. So for me, it was a great experience and possibility for me to work very far from the first hospital, for sure. And I am a sailor too, because I am really interested by sailing a race boat like the 871 you see in the middle. It's my little racing boat, 6.5 meters. So that's why the subject of medical basics on board is for me really interesting, and I am happy to share it with you. So let's go. When we are talking about long cruise medical training, we have to carry on different aspects to understand how can I prepare my trip. It's really important, I think, same thing for many things, to anticipate as much as possible the different aspects of the preparation. We will see it just after. Another point is to be able to handle an emergency on board, and to be able to be a caregiver for first aid situation in case of threatening life. We will see it just after. After that, it can be great to be self-sufficient with daily medical problems, because the goal is to be able to give the right cares and to feel comfortable with it, not to have to call each time the remote doctor. But the final point is to know when to take medical advice in the right situation, the situation you will have to face with serious disease or some disease which can become worse and worse. So for this, for sure, you have to learn some aspects of our job to be able to recognize some situation, to make a great assessment, because this assessment will make the remote doctor able to give you a clear advice. And for all of this, you will have to be able to have some skills. But we will have a look about these different skills just after. Okay, so what are the big things to have in mind before setting off? What we want to do is to make all the medical aspects as great as possible. That means each people on the crew need to make a great checkup with the GP to be sure you will leave the ground in good health status. So you have to take enough time to meet your GP to control chronic disease, vaccination, make the prescription for the onboard pharmacy, and your own treatment if you need some. What can be very interesting too is to have a consultation at the traveler medicine department. Now it's quite easy to find this kind of department because you will have to take personal advice for you about malaria. If you plan to stay quite a long time on the ground in some tropical countries, it's great to have some advices to avoid different tropical diseases. And this consultation depends on each people, on your, perhaps if you have chronic disease or some treatments you take every day. The advice can be different, especially for the malaria treatment. So it's, I think, important to have enough time to see the traveler doctor. The third point is the cardiologist consultation, especially for people after 60 years old. For example, when I was working on the Marion Dufresne, the big scientific boat you see, before setting off, we asked every passenger to see the cardiologist if they have one risk factor for the cardiac disease. So if you have a diabetes or high blood pressure or obesity, or after 60 years old, or if you are a smoker, you really need to go to see the cardiologist. Because what could be not so easy to manage would be to have some pain chest in the middle of the sea, because it's a really difficult situation for the remote doctor. In mostly all the cases, he will need to say to you to be evacuated, because we don't have any very precise clinical signal to make difference between serious one or not serious at all. So to avoid this situation, it's really great to live with a clear heart situation for you, because the cardiologist can be able to understand exactly how healthy is your heart by making you some some specific examination. And the last point is to meet your dentist. If your teeth are all right, it will be very quick. But if you didn't go to the dentist since a long time, it will be interesting to see the dentist. When I was the doctor on board with the Marion Dufresne, it was the first situation in numbers. We meet on board, and sometimes we had to evacuate some people for having some dentist care. Okay, so this is for the clinical aspect. But as you can see, if you want to make all of this, it's great to anticipate. And for the insurance aspect, it's a special point. I won't develop it now, but take some time to find one, especially one will be able to take the both aspects in case of evacuation. On one hand is all the transport aspect to reimburse, to refund the cost of helicopter or I don't know, evacuation by boat. And the other hand is the medical aspect. When I give some courses to French sailors, I explain them that if they have to evacuate for appendicitis, for example, with a surgery in the States, I guess the price for this kind of surgery can be about 80,000 US dollars, I think. So this is a point that you have to make it clear before. Okay, so this is before setting off. And what you have to understand is perhaps you will face some unexpected situation you won't meet in the all-day life. Some diseases which are related to the sea, seasickness, for example. But it's well to great understand what is seasickness, how can I avoid it, how can I treat a seasickness with some pills or with some non-pills treatment, and how I can treat a seasickness which is really severe, because sometimes seasickness can be a big problem. So it's great to well understand this point. Okay, sorry. And if you go very north or south, we will have some cold-related illness, but it's not so common. Heat-related for all the tropical or Caribbean cruising. Lightning damage, it's a real point, because we can have some damage on the eyes in case of lack of protection. And another thing, it's the wounds caused by marine flora and fauna. Okay. So now if we think about the different dangers on board, for sure you will answer it quite easy to understand what are the risks and what I have to be attentive. But now it's easy to understand this because we are inside, we are not tired, we are talking comfortably about everything. But when you will be on your boat, after 10 days crossing Atlantic, for example, with bad weather and perhaps with bad nights before, you will be tired, and it's much more difficult to stay clear sightedness with these dangers when you are tired. So what can be really important is to know the dangers very precisely, to be able to remind everything even if you are tired, because your capacity of consciousness will decrease with the tire. So the more you know the danger, the more you will be able to anticipate. Other dangers on board, which can be the origin of different injuries, are the kitchen and do-it-yourself reparation on the boat. So be careful with the kitchen. Be able to think when is the right moment, the right situation to cook, and when it's not the good time. And to know very well how is your kitchen. Is it a strong thing? Are the knives not too much dangerous? For example, it's great to avoid the knife we are too sharp. So it's really nice to make a good assessment of your boat, to explain to the non-sailors if they have some non-sailors on board which places are dangerous, and to have a good equipment to avoid some dangers. Another point is when you go to pee at the back of the boat, because this is a not so funny situation, because we are used to say that many sailors who go overboard have the pee at that moment. So be very careful. Don't hesitate to explain again to every guy, because it's only a male problem, that it's forbidden to do like these people, especially at night time, for sure, especially when the weather is not good, or when the people is alone on the deck. And if you have to climb to the mast, for sure you have to make a cross check with another people, and to be sure you really need to go to the mast, because for sure it's a really dangerous action, and to think about the good weather window to do it. Okay, so a big point will be the pharmacy for you. So before preparing the pharmacy, you really have to know what you will need and why. That's why it can be great to go to some medical courses, because for preparing your pharmacy, you need to think about your trip, the season, the people on board, the level of navigation you will do. Are you interesting by going quite fast with bad weather, or are you able to take your time to be in more comfortable situation? Because all of this will make the level of danger different. Another point is to know for sure how to use it. So for this, you really need to prepare your own pharmacy by yourselves with your GP prescription, and to discover it before setting off, not during the cruise, So you have to handle the different measuring instruments, know exactly how it works, and use it before. And a great point is to organize it with a clear sightedness. So what can be great is to recover from to get all the medics and stuff from the pharmacy, and to evaluate the space you need. And what I give as an advice to people is, for example, to make 3 different bags. The first one will be the life-threatening situation with tourniquet, epinephrine, few things like this, but only 5 to 10 things for real critical situation. The second bag will be the daily pharmacy for the all-day medical diseases. So like this, it's easy to find some painkillers, some stuff to manage a wound, to make some dressing, to deal with some stomachache or seasickness. And the third bag, the biggest one, will be all the storage to have enough quantity for an ocean crossing, for example. And the last one, sometimes it's necessary, is to think about the life craft bag, because sometimes on your life craft there is no medical box or a very little one. So it's always great to have a look to what the stuff are exactly inside your life craft, and to add something if necessary. But the main point is to organize it and prepare it by yourselves, and to feel comfortable to use it. What I say something is, for example, if at the beginning of your cruise you have some people with a little headache or little seasickness, you won't be you won't be worried about it. But even if you are not worried, you can do as if you were worried. That means that you can use all the different measuring instruments to make a great assessment, to look in all your pharmacy to be sure it's easy for you to find the good pill, to fill the medical file as if you have to make a call to the remote doctor after, but you know it's false. But like this, you can practice without too much stress and feel comfortable for the next time. Another thing before setting off is to learn some skills, because if you need to manage with a deep wound, you will have to make some stitches or to put some medical staples. So when we organize some courses, we spend about 2 hours to making stitches and discover how it works, and to train to feel easy with this for the next time. In the same idea, we speak, you will need to be able to make some dressings and to manage the burn. So for this, it's great to have an idea of the different level of severity for the burns. That's a great thing. and to have all the stuff to give the care for first-degree burn, second-degree burn, and to know exactly when a burn can become critical, to be able to call remote doctor in the good situation. So there is a special point for this. Another thing is to be able to manage with some trauma situation, because on board with some bad weather condition, it's moving a lot. There are many different things on the deck that can make you some twists on the ankles, for example. So it's great to know how to make a good assessment with the trauma, and how to realize some splint, tailored splint in resin. For me, it's the best way to deal with this situation, because if you bring with you only 3 rolls of medical resin, and if you know how to use it, you will be able to create a different splint for different articulation for adult or children. So it's really a tailored technique. And another point is to know how to mobilize an injured person, especially a splint or a spinal injury. We will have a word on it just after.
Martin?
Oui.
Yes, just a question about the wounded aspect. One of our attendees, Nicolas, asks for the possibility to use some glues as a
yes, it's a good question.
As an emergency agent to repair some wounds.
So medical glue can be a good option, but only in specific situation. You can use glue for a wound which is not too much deep, about half centimeter. It can work, but only if there is no blood, no hemorrhage, and the result on the face is not so beautiful. So you have to avoid it in the middle of the face. But when the good conditions are here, you can use it. But
okay.
It won't be enough to give the care for any wound.
Of course. Okay. Thank you. I'll let you continue.
Yes. Okay. So now we have to speak about emergency on board, because it's for sure the worst situation we can expect. And the first point will be to make all you can to avoid a real emergency on board. And it's almost possible. Recently I looked to the statistics, the report of medical situation on board for the pleasure craft for 2020, and luckily the critical situation are really close to 0. It's less than 1% or 0.5, but this great report is possible because people will live in good health condition. because they have anticipated and they have seen the doctor and just what we said just before. And during the cruise, they avoid a bad situation exposing to big injury. Because you are on a pleasure craft, you can choose the weather window to leave. You can decide to avoid some low pressure area, to change the route, to reduce the sail and the speed. So first thing is to understand that you have almost all things in your hand to avoid a big emergency on board. But if unfortunately it happens, you will be alone to carry the first aid, to give the first aid, because when we speak about the threatening life situation, all the medical action have to be carried within the 10 minutes. So when we go for sailing, we will be alone for 10 minutes for sure, even for coastal navigation. So the meaning of this is you will be alone. So you have to know how to manage it. And it's your responsibility when you are the navigator to be able to carry the first aid and to have the minimum of stuff to carry it and to have the knowledge for this. So what will happen in case of big emergency? Your role of navigator will change. You become the medical advisor. You will need some medical knowledge, which is the key point of your action. And you will have to make decision to become performant. But a good news is that you, sorry, I go just after. Yes, we say all this. And you can transfer your skills from navigator to caregiver because as a navigator, you have already great skills like being able to anticipate, to keep calm, to keep self-control, to work with the crew, be able to communicate well, even if the situation is stressful. And you will need to know who will become the leader, because in case of threatening life situation, you will need some leadership. If not, everyone will become stressful and inefficient. And you have to prioritize the course of action to make. So we can say it's the biggest point and the hardest one, but it's completely possible to have in your head some courses of action to know and to organize. Another thing we can say is this point of the threatening life situation for you will be more useful for the whole day life on the ground because the probability you have to face with this situation is much higher in the whole life. So how can I handle an emergency? We will learn how to recognize an emergency. There is different kinds of emergencies, but there are only 4. It's a loss of consciousness, cardiac arrest, suffocation, and severe bleeding. So for each, you have to know action plan and to organize the caregivers team Once the situation is under control, it's important to make a precise assessment with the ABCD rule for airway, breathing, circulation, disability, and exposure. And once you made this assessment, you will be able to take a medical advice to the remote doctor. It will help you to continue to organize the care, and if necessary, he will organize evacuation. But I repeat, it's really uncommon. I don't want to give you some stress or some threatening ideas, but it's uncommon because people are aware with this risk, and they make all the action before to prevent and to anticipate. And the last thing to know for this is with half-day training, it's really possible to be a great caregiver for first aid situation, because as we said, there is only 4 critical situation. There is some action to have in your head, and after it's great to train, to learn how to make chest compression, to organize the cardiopulmonary resuscitation, and it will be helpful for the whole life, because in the whole life we don't have enough people who can give some first aid. So it's a great thing to know. Especially in France, we are really not so good. There is only 20% of the people who know how to do this, compared to Swedish or Norwegian people. 80% of population are okay to do it. Okay, so if we, when the situation is stabilized, in case of evacuation, it will be important to control different aspects. This example is a spinal injury. So it was a racing cruise. Someone fall on the deck with a back injury. So it's really important to know how we have to organize in this case. So the first thing is to have a neck brace to put, which helps you to respect the head, neck, trunk axis. Like we can see on the picture, some people is going to put the neck brace, and the victim is already on a special back support to keep the back area in the good position, in flat position. And like this, you will be able to make a secure transfer to the inside of the boat, to be able to stay in the good waiting position before the evacuation. And after that, it's important to continue to control the different clinical signs, to be sure people continue the ventilation, to avoid hypothermia by putting a survival blanket, and after that to prepare the evacuation. So this is another point to know, because if you know exactly how it can happen, you will be less stressful and more comfortable to organize it. So we have to speak about bad situation, but luckily it's totally uncommon. But if unfortunately it can happen, it's great to know exactly what what I have to do and how I can organize it. Okay, something much easier and not so uncommon is to be able to be self-sufficient for daily medical problems. So this is great because it's for you a possibility to be able to understand many different medical problems and to feel self-sufficient. And like this, we will speak during the courses about the minor situation, to recognize them, to know exactly the level of severity. So the common one are stomach ache, seasickness, headache, constipation, sunburn, cystitis, little wounds, sprain, muscle pain. So normally with some clear ideas, it's completely possible to feel self-sufficient. And the thing will be to be able to see some little red flag that will show you have to control some things and to be able to have a call to the remote doctor in case of bad evolution within 2 or 3 days. So a thing which is important to have in mind is that the medical situation can always move within some time. So don't stay too much focus on only one idea because it can change. So when I have to take medical advice, for sure for life-threatening situation, but you won't call the doctor initially. You will have to manage the survival action first and to stabilize the victim, and only after make a call. Second point is the intermediate situation. So we speak about a situation when you can be a little worried because it can change in few hours or days. So we speak about pain in the chest. Sorry, I forgot to put it, but this is for sure a situation where you will have to make an extended assessment and after to take medical advice. Sudden headache, fever, more than 48 hours, unexpected faintness, big stomach ache or prolonged one, severe seasickness, because in case of severe seasickness, you can have dehydration and lack of potassium, sometimes in case of vomiting for many hours long. And the third one is a minor situation. You have to stay able to ask advice in case of unexpected change. This is important.
Okay. Martin?
Yes,
Martin, just a point. It's about you're mentioning medical assessment.
Yes.
Just a point. I will share a link with some interesting resources about MRCC, Maritime Rescue Coordination Centers.
Yes.
All around the world. Okay, I will share this link if you accept so. But just a question: do you know, and would you recommend to mainly to French sailing people the Toulouse organism, which is
yes, the CCNM.
Would you have a few words about it?
Yes. So for French people, we have a medical center in Toulouse called the CCMM, le Centre de Consultation de Médecine Maritime. It's inside the SAMU 31 in Toulouse. You can find some doctor, emergency department doctor, who are able to give you advice for situation on board, because they take all the calls from all the vessels, the French one, all over the world. So they are really experts on this question, and you can call them 24/7. But if you want to have the greatest advice from them, it's important to send them before you leave some medical informations about the crew. They will keep confidential. It's great to give them the route you will use and the pharmacy you have on board. And what you can find on the website of CCMM is some medical file for assessment. You will be able to fill it for making a great assessment. And like this, you have a precise situation before calling them. So I recommend to go to the website because all the documents are really great.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And it's almost finished now. But last thing is to show you some pictures about some sea dangers. It's great to learn about fauna and flora you will meet in the different areas you will go and swim, because some of these beautiful animals can be really dangerous, and we don't have enough time to make the list of all of them, but it's really great to know where you will put your toes and your fingers inside the sea, because sometimes it can be great to avoid them. So the main thing is not to touch any animals inside the water, to preserve them and to avoid some wound or some poisoning. Okay, for me, I think if I look to my watch, it can be the time for some question and answers. So we can have a look to your question if you want. So let me see your question.
Yeah, okay. Maybe from the lower part of the screen, maybe. Okay. So there was a question, an issue about risk assessment with some private exchanges between attendees. Maybe you would have a point to mention about this, Martin, which are the good practices to prevent risk on board, maybe before setting sail. Okay.
Yes.
And which would be your recommendations in that way?
So for prevent the risk, the first thing is to know your boat as well as possible, to make a great description to everyone on board in your crew of the different parts of the boat, the one you can go safely, the one you have to avoid, the one which can become dangerous in case of bad weather, as we see on the first pictures, to explain the dangers with the winch, with the anchor, with the mast, with the boom. And it's never unuseful to repeat this, even to people who go on the boat usually. So this is for the boat. For the inside of the boat, the kitchen is really a big point. You have to take some time inside to be sure the different instruments for cooking are not too much dangerous, and to change the knives if they are too dangerous. To control the heat system for the boiling water is really strong, not to get some boiling water on your feet, and to remind that for cooking, it's for sure better not to be you have to keep some clothes with you and some trousers and some shoes, because we can unfortunately see some people with severe burning because of the boiling water. And the last thing is to be really what's the name, tidy or methodical when you will make some maneuvers on the deck. You have to wear gloves, to wear shoes, to avoid many injuries. And when you want to repair something on board and you have to make some action with repairing, you have to protect your eyes and wear gloves. And what is difficult with this point is that it's really easy to understand it when we are not tired and when it's all right. But when you are tired, when you are a little bit stressed, when you want to go be quick to repair something or making a maneuvers quickly, at that moment you will forget a little bit this precaution, and that's why you can have some injury. So what is great is to always being able to remind, being orderly and organized and tidy.
Okay, thank you, Martin. In terms of assessment, you were mentioning before that you had to take care of course, visiting a doctor, visiting a dentist, and so. There's a question about appendicitis. Which would be the recommendation today regarding the state of the art in medicine? Would you recommend to operate appendix before selling or no?
No. Now we changed the recommendation. Few decades before, the rule was to being operated before leaving. But after a few years, we discovered that it can be more dangerous to make some prophylactic surgery, because the thing is that if you are on your boat with some signs of appendicitis, if you have never been operated, we can think it can be appendicitis in case of fever, vomiting, pain in the back part and right part of the belly. And finally, to manage with an appendicitis on board, now it's not such a big deal, because we will give some antibiotics and try to go back to an hospital, but within 3 to 7 days. So we have some time to go back. But if you already have some surgery for appendicitis, and if you have some big stomachache, we can be afraid by some situation which is an occlusion, because on a belly with surgery, we know that inside the belly, after surgery, where there is some how do you say it? In breed, some tissue which is more hard in some places of the inside of the belly, and around this part of the tissue, the intestine can make a twist, and it will block the digestive transit. And this situation is an occlusion, and it's really a bad situation because you have to make a surgery within 1 or 2 days. So we prefer having a simple appendicitis on board than an occlusion. so you don't have to make a preventive surgery.
Okay, thank you.
Just to finish it, now we know that on healthy people with appendicitis, if we give antibiotics early, we can cure the problem without surgery in 30 to 50%. So it's quite great.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Very shortly again, maybe very shortly, is there the risk of some issues with the pharmaceutical products you can charge on board regarding to laws on foreign countries?
Yes.
So is it possible to have the good practice you would recommend in that way? So
yes, the main point to understand this is to remind that the navigator need to be able to give the care. So the first thing is to have a good pharmacy, enough with enough different things inside. So you will need many different pills and stuff. But to be in a rule with many countries, you have to bring with you all the prescription, and the prescription you have to make it with your GP in DCI. It's a special international non-proprietary name. Like this, it can be easy to understand in all the countries. So for the police at the harbor, it's great. And for you, if you keep the prescription with you, you can make some. You can have some new pills in the pharmacy in foreign countries. So for the main drugs, it will be easy. After that, the point is for the big painkillers like morphine. It's a big problem in some countries because of dependence with the morphine and some traffic. So you have to be vigilant with this. But my advice is to have some prescription from your GP with morphine, because it's very important to be able to give the good painkillers in case of horrible pain. And if you want to avoid bad situation with policy, you have to keep the prescription with you in English, and you have to make a special file inside the boat only for the morphine, and you write the quantity you have at the beginning. If you use one, you have to write the date, people who you will give it, and the new quantity in your storage. And you have to keep all the pills of morphine inside a closed place to be in the better situation if you have to discuss with the authorities in the harbor.
Okay. In terms of, let's say, medical materials you could have on board, would you recommend having, for sailors and more than 50 years, having a portative electrocardiogram apparel on board? Or it's a question coming from Nicolas, which looks like being a professional captain on what we call marine marchande, which is big commercial ships. Okay. Would you recommend having such a material as an ECG on board a sailing cruiser?
I would say for mostly 99% of the sailors for cruising, it's not necessary. For people with some cardiac chronic diseases, they have to speak with their cardiologist to think about it. In few cases, it can be interesting for people with rhythm disease, and like this, if the chronic disease is unbalanced, we can control by EKG what happened exactly, and send the EKG to remote doctor and find some temporary solution. But it remains something really special for people without cardiac disease. I think it's too much sophisticated, and I don't think it can be really interesting.
Okay, thank you. Just a question again. It's about let's say the good practices and the good way to have good referential systems. Would you recommend people to work on some EMT programs, which mean emergency medical technicians, which are some dedicated existing programs, or what? Or would you rather recommend to call to MRCC when needed?
Sorry, I think EMT are something really specific we don't have in France. So I don't know exactly what are inside these courses. But if EMT allows non-doctor to be able to face emergency situation, it can be great. In France, we organize some medical courses for the sailors, but in other countries, if EMT exists, I'm sure it can be really interesting for this project of cruising with a sailing boat.
Okay, so what you are just mentioning is Escale Formation Technique. I will just provide the link. Escale Formation Technique is a company specializing in medical in nautical learning. Okay, based in Brittany in France, and you, I think, collaborate with that structure.
Yes.
I think Marie-Eugénie is listening for us, and I thank her for being here and for making the link with Martin. So Escale Formation Technique is able to provide some medical formations. Okay, that's it. I just give the link just now. Okay. Well, you have a few questions for more precise points. If you want to have an answer, Martin, about tramadol prescription in South America, which is very, very precise. Maybe you won't have the answer. It's about the role of connected watches. Is there the possibility to have a practical medical handbook on board? Do you have some opinions about that different point?
Yes, for handbook is totally necessary to have one on board because in mostly all the situation you will have time to understand what happened, to make assessment, and to read again the part of your handbook. So it will be your best friend on the boat. But to be able to use it correctly, you have to train before and to think about it before leaving. So I have some reference of handbook in French, but sorry, I don't have for now in English. So this is for handbook. For tramadol, sorry, I tried to find the question.
It's the possibility to have tramadol prescription in South Africa. So it's quite a precise question with a precise product on a precise location. So
the question is it possible to have this pill from South Africa?
Yeah.
Stromala in South Africa, prescription, okay.
For that case, I recommend the people that ask for the question which is Jean-Luc, to send an email as mentioned at events@glyachting.com, and Martin will of course provide a dedicated answer to that very precise question. I thank you for. Well, Martin, I think it's okay for us.
Okay.
On the Q&A question session. Okay. So shortly, our next blue water sailing webinar will take place in 15 days from now. It will be on December the 2nd with Knut Frostadt. Maybe you know Knut Frostadt. He's a Norwegian sailor. He has built impressive palmarès running Olympic Games, running a Volvo race, being also the CEO of the Volvo race. And today he's the CEO of a leading company in selling consumer electronics, which is Navico. And we have asked Knut to answer the question of the possibility to sail, how far the fact of sailing digital is a freedom factor on board. So I think this question will be very interesting, in the same way than Martin wrote to us today on the Medecine point. So I recommend you to be among us on the next webinar, which with the link coming. Okay. Anyway, you will have the replay of that actual session in a few hours from now. What I just wanted to mention also is the Grand Large World Odyssey 500, which is for the first time a rally which is organized by the Grand Large Yachting Group. 32 boats will be leaving the Canaries, Tenerife in the Canaries, including Loic, who is among us, and other sailors. I say hello to, for a 3 years round the world session. They will of course have some precious medical advices, maybe from Martin and from other well-known medicine actors around the world. I recommend you to follow this Odyssey on the dedicated website, glwworldodyssey.com, and also on the social media. This will be an event very representative of what achieving a blue water sailing project can represent now. This will also, of course, take part on board some boats built by Grand Large Yachting Group brands, but that is not the main point. The main point is being able to go and to decide to go as a we can say, and to dare to dream and to operate your dream. Well, we thank you very much for that, and recommend you to be among us for the next session in 15 days with Knut Frostadt. That's it. Well, in a few minutes we'll leave. Martin, some last word for you?
Well, thank you to everyone, and be sure it's possible to feel self-sufficient for a medical situation. It's possible to learn and to train, to have the skills which are needed to be able to cross oceans. So that's a great project. Whatever.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, and see you next time.
Okay. Thank you.